Welcome to Show Studios. I'm Kina. I'm an artisan based in Los Angeles, and this is my studio where I create fiber arts and ceramics. I feel so excited and honestly a little bit overwhelmed, but I'm going to go through all of the projects that I worked on in 2025. This is like such a cool time to be able to sit back and reflect on the work that you've created and also see how much you evolved. So, I started creating ceramics back in September of 2024, and I was a complete beginner, never taken pottery before in my life, but I was really drawn to it. I was already working on my fiber art, and I was also working in the fashion industry. So to me, it was just like a lot of garment overload. I was seeing a lot of fashion everywhere, and although I love it, I was itching to be inspired by something else. And when it came to decorating my own apartment and really putting intention behind design decisions that I was making for my home space, I loved it. It was so much fun. And that got me thinking that maybe I should start creating things for the home. So I came into this January still practicing a lot of beginner ceramic techniques like how to pull up more even walls or improving my glazing techniques. And then also, I started to get really creative with the things that I wanted to make out of clay, and I would just look at something in the household or think about something and like why I can make that out of clay probably. So I want to try that. I knew that I wanted to create functional art that I would get the opportunity to interact with on the daily. So I stuck with kitchenware and eventually home decor. That turned into some really exciting and fun projects for me this year. So without further ado, let's please get into some of the projects that I created in 2025. So I flew back from holiday break and I was definitely in a spring cleaning mindset because I did a whole studio refresh. And my first video is a walkthrough of my fiber art studio, so you should go and watch that. But I did a studio refresh. I was really excited to hit the ground running, and I also had gotten a pottery wheel for my home space. So it looks like I was throwing some bowls and I was also kind of figuring out how I'm going to store pottery that I was making at home. I definitely still to this day need a shelf here to put some of my pieces that are drying or need to be trimmed or even my bisquares. On January 3rd, I wanted to do a filet crochet project and I found this crochet graph on Pinterest and I just started. Like, I love this project now because it reminds me of a lace motif, and I think I did a really good job of like jumping into it, not knowing how it was going to turn out afterwards. I was pleasantly surprised. It turned out so lovely. On January 6th, I was at the pottery studio and I just picked up some baking dishes that I created, and it's funny to look back at that because I use these baking dishes often now, and so knowing that I picked them up from the studio on January 6th was so silly. I made these baking dishes with recycled clay, and I really just try and stick to the idea of preheating them with my oven. So I don't do any dramatic temperature changes. I just let them preheat in my oven like a Dutch oven. So to me, they work really well, and I love them. The next project is around January 14th. The idea for this project came from a genuine need in the household. So we have this Brita and we refill it multiple times a day. And I just felt like that was getting a little bit unsustainable or at least tedious. And sometimes I would prefer to be dehydrated than do all the effort to wait for the Brita to refill, and which is not good. Don't do that. Stay very hydrated. The project was to make drink a drink pitcher or like a dispenser. So I made two jars. They were the biggest things that I've thrown. I think at the time these were the biggest pieces of clay that I was working with on the wheel. Here are some pictures of when I started trimming those water pitchers. I got in the hardware offline, and this is called a spigot. Somewhere along the way, I kind of just realized that I could buy other things to add on to my ceramic pieces to like make them even more functional or to give them like a new use and very creative. So the water pitcher for me was like literally mind blowing. I was like, I'm so smart. I can't believe I just thought about this. But and then I was just making some bubble plates. I never really thought that, oh, I can't do this. That's too advanced for me. Instead, I just tried it because how was I going to find out if I didn't just try to do it first? So, January 20th was actually a pivotal moment in my life. January 20th was the day that I went into the pottery studio and I went to the glaze shelf and I found these beautiful bowls and cups sitting there. I was aghast because the color green that I accomplished by mixing two different glazes at my studio was the color that I've been searching for my entire life. The color that I didn't even know I needed. It was so lovely. It was so beautiful. It's basically just like a really glossy, rich emerald green. Now we're in February. Ooh, on February 1st, I made some granola at home. I'm gonna spare you of like the things that I cooked this year because that would make this video extremely long. I made some granola in this lace bowl. I basically took like some lace fabric I had sitting around, and right before leather hard stage, I imprinted it onto a bowl that is wheel thrown. Somebody had thrown out this chair. So excited. I rushed home and I had a lot of yardage of this woven fabric. I did some really rough calculations and we ended up making this chair poof. I made the chair poof, and I know I keep saying functional, but I don't think you guys understand how much I really do interact and actually kind of need a lot of the things that I make. I wanted to celebrate Galentine's. I wanted to make some pajamas for the pajama party I was about to throw. I made this also really quickly, like in one day. This sleeveless top was inspired by a top that I already had. It was more of like a dress. It was literally like a dress that I already have, but I wore it as a top. So I was inspired and I made it again. At this point, I was also bringing home a lot of my ceramics and like putting them into my household and really getting to use them on a daily basis. I think that's really what motivated me the most, is because I was actually using these things. A green jug. I find that the shape of this jug is really satisfying. I was working a full-time job at the time, so I knew that I needed a little bit of like some outlets that I could take throughout my day. So this tomato embroidery was just something real simple to work on. At this point, you might know that I have knitting machines here in the fiber studio. This was also the first time that I created like a textile portrait or painting. I don't really even know what to call it. To me, it was just the idea that I want to see fiber hung up on my walls because I love inspecting the small details within that material. Tell me why. Okay, tell me why I got into wood whittling for a split second. Like literally a split second. I think it was because I was making so many kitchenware pieces. I tried it, a wooden spoon. It was really cute. It was really cute, and surprisingly, this took me a day. And can we look at my nails? It looks like this was a glaze day. Glaze days scare me because, yeah, at this time, I was also really into lidded forms. I just really appreciated the amount of attention that went into making lidded forms because they really do have to be two pieces that fit perfectly together. And then a colander that I began working on. The next big kind of milestone was February 23rd when I started to prepare for my first farmer's market. This was an opportunity for me to literally dip my toes into what it would be to share my art with other people in person. I really do feel deeply about the art that I was creating, so at the time, I was feeling the idea of tension for so many reasons. But it's the layer of crackle on the glaze that's like the tension before you either break or you don't. I was really inspired by that idea, so I did this quilting project, did some patchworking to create the visual effect of cracking to go along with the ceramic pieces that were there. Yeah, so at this point, you could see that once I found that glaze combo, that emerald green glaze combo, I used it often. I loved it. We did this table arrangement that really brightened up the space. I almost didn't want to take this down. Like the flowers were dead and I did not want to take this down. You can also see in the corner my little herb garden. It looks like at the time I was growing like some sage and chives and basil. Basil is so easy to grow. I did this mini dress that was so sweet, and it really just like jumped back into I was getting excited about the spring and getting excited about the idea of making spring related clothing. That's going to be so lovely in the weather. I got a Cricut. I love it. I don't have a printer here in the studio, so my Cricut is the closest thing to like translating ideas that I have online and bringing them out in person. And then also, I use them for so many different things, like all of my branding, all of my posters, my business cards at this point. I used to get them printed, but now I just make them on my Cricut because I control the entire process of doing so. Next is March 16th. That was a meal prep day, and I started to incorporate some of my ceramics into my like daily kitchen and cooking routines. I'm going to throw in my hairstyles under the category of fiber art. Period. I did this braided style and I twisted up my hair and used pins to hold together these little pinwheels. A couple days later, I used my curlers to like put little curlies at the end of like a 6 braids, maybe. It was adorable. April's my favorite month. April is such a beautiful month. So on April 2nd, I was here at the home studio and I was wheel throwing again. This time, I was using 2 different clay bodies and it created like this marble effect that was so cool. And I don't know why I haven't done this again. We have a couple members at our pottery studio that do this really well and use some really beautiful porcelain clay bodies. At this point, I also mustered up enough courage to try throwing off the hump. This was a game changer for me. It made so much sense because I wanted to make a bunch of teacups for my birthday at the end of the month. Another very pivotal time of the year, we got our second kitty, Genevieve, on April 4th. She's our baby calico. She's so sweet, also very shy. Like, if we have any guests over, she will be in the closet. I have some more baking dishes, but these are kind of more like platters. So those just came out. There's this berry bowl that I created. The day before my 21st birthday, I wanted to make this low v-neck top, and it turned out perfectly. My only regret is that I sold this. Early May was also very exciting. So I stood up really late this day to hand sew myself a banner because I was doing my very first market and I was going to sell my ceramics and my knitwear garments at this market. This is in a neighborhood called Leimert Park here in Los Angeles. It's a historically Black neighborhood with a plethora of Black-owned businesses and a thriving community of people. I am really proud of this first setup. It shows so much intention. I use my Cricut to make all of my posters for my markets, and I still do to this day. I made these triangle-shaped jars, and somebody at Leimert had a bright idea to use it as a sage burner. I would ground up a little bit of sage and light it while it's inside this conical shape. And it really just funneled all of the smoke into one direction. And it's great for me because I lit a candle one time and my cat Jules, like, she was messing with it. So we have not lit a candle in the house since. At the end of May, I got the opportunity to showcase some of my work at a local restaurant called Guzu Bentoya here in downtown Los Angeles. I'll do an entire separate video on my experiences with being a vendor at markets and farmers markets here in LA. June 4th, I showed up to the studio not knowing what I was gonna make. This vase was inspired by my hairstyle that I had that week. Beautiful. The hairstyle, amazing. The vase, amazing. Like, it was a challenge, and it was also a point like, I'm gonna try and make it, and if it breaks, it breaks, but at least I tried. And this survived all the way through bisque firing and glazing. Honestly, the glazing messed up more than like structurally how I was creating this vase. Here's the next glaze haul, and I think you can tell that I was just really satisfied that this emerald color did not miss. I started working on my first like attach handles to mugs, and they look so silly. They look like ears, but I really love them. It's a candelabra, but for your big candles, like my kitty Jules really loves to swat at flames, so we cannot light candles in the house. So something like this is really helpful. Next is a knitwear project. This is actually on my wall. It's right there. It brightens up the space so much. I did some more graphic knitwear and made these two swatches of a Sunday motif. So cute. And then I had a really big glaze haul. We see a bunch of lidded forms and big bowls and teacups and plates and plant pots. I also made some tiles that I imprinted some lace onto. We have my curly girl vase sculpture and lemon juicers, colanders. And then I made that picture. I didn't even get back to the picture that I was talking about earlier. The first two water taps that I made got glazed shut till this day. So I made another one. This is a big strawberry inspired picture. And it's lovely and it works. There's platters and trinket dishes, and then I had also made another hand building piece. This is a bunny piggy bank. I was also doing some little experiments with underglaze. So we have a couple pieces that have some underglaze designs. I got together with my friend Seth. We had a dinner party and hosted all of our friends. We cooked for them. The table settings were all of my handmade ceramics. Seth did the floral arrangement for us. Thank you, Seth. August, I took a big leap and I did a market. It's called Black Market Flea. This was a market that I attended myself. To be a part of this market was so full circle. I came to LA as like somebody experiencing the city, and then I felt like I came back and I was able to be a part of the experience of LA. So amazing, and I'm so happy to continue to go back to that market. So see me there. My setup had already improved dramatically. I wanted to create some more space within the booth and make it feel like it was an apartment that somebody could walk into and kind of imagine all of their like all of my pottery within their space. So August 30th, I got back home and I wanted to immerse myself back into fiber arts. So I got on my embroidery machine and started working out a couple different like typography. On August 31st, I got a very cool hand poke tattoo from IDK Scone, also local here in LA. Again, we're back in the space of experimenting and pushing the grounds on what I can and have not tried to make yet. So at this point, I really wanted to make bottles. They looked lovely and they all turned out different. Here is what my mood board was looking like around September. These are some of the colors and the textures and the branding that was inspiring the work I was creating for fall. I also just want to throw in my hairstyle at the time. This is September. I had my locks. We love them. I also just made myself this wheel throwing bowl. So when I'm throwing on the wheel, I like can scrape my hand off, and that's where my throwing water is. And it's a pretty gross bowl, but it was super functional. And if you know, if you're a potter, you know. So now that I was doing a couple markets, I was investing back into the business and I tried out all of these new glazes. This is how I tested my underglaze on this placket that I keep on my wall now. By the way, I use recycled clay from our studio. So I use recycled clay for these textiles as well. I also leveled up my maker's mark, and this was a game changer for me. Like, I loved the fact that I was already putting my name, signing everything that I was making in terms of ceramics, but my maker's mark is so beautiful. It feels like a final touch of like a gift from me to you. I'll probably do a whole separate video on the maker's mark because I've gotten a lot of questions about it so far. Next, I began doing some more underglazed designs. Here are teacups that I was working on. And then also, this is what my bisque hauls were looking like. Glaze days are like my least favorite days. So this is actually a little bit of a nightmare at the same time. And then I had the bright idea to throw big. Throw big or go home. I made a cake platter and it's my favorite piece. By far my favorite piece. Beautiful. Okay, I started to get a little confident with my handles and I started adding some more organically shaped handles and bigger pieces. This is also when I slowed down a little bit to really understand the clay drying process. You know, I would either be trimming my pieces way too late or way too early. At this point, I really let things slowly dry and tried to catch it at the perfect time to add handles. Spooky season. This is October 19th. Using my Cricut, I made all of these small little spiders and I put them everywhere. And I thought it was just so funny. They're so cute, but also like so spooky. So spooky. I cannot tell you why. I found this so entertaining. And this is like my fall glaze haul. So these are like colors that I wanted to try. I wanted to find a purple. I wanted to get like a rich glossy brown and also like white and of course my signature green. I also had a red and some pink in there and a couple of underglazed pieces. I had a bunch of bottles come out and the bottles look so good. The bottles were exactly what I was thinking, like exactly what I was trying to make. I did that. I was a Girl Scout for Halloween and I literally embroidered myself not only my troop badges for LA, but also my ceramic patch because at this point I deserved it. I had such a great year of experimenting and trying new things and like not telling myself that I can't do something. I can do anything. We can literally create anything we want. So I'm so proud of myself. I deserved my ceramic patch and I was a lovely Girl Scout. We're finally at November and almost to the end of the year. I was doing a bit more graphic knitwear, trying to explore, and I always fill my pillows with scrap yarn. I also like sew pillows. I don't think I took a picture of this, but this year I also made a cat bed and this pillow that I keep on my couch. So you really see at this point, I'm in the headspace of creating things for the home. And this is where I want to be right now, like just making things for the home. Again, I really am leaning into my styles. Not only can I create most of the forms that I want to work with, now I can bring my own stylistic elements into them, keep them functional. And I really do believe that the people that love my style of art will come and find me. So I worked on some instant holders and flat bottom ramekins. I got the idea that I really love things with a flat bottom. I don't know, this is just a more satisfying shape to me than a regular bowl. More pictures of my market setup and a couple of the pieces that I was working on. Here is the completed cake platter, the root jar, some underglazed plates, a new colander, some mugs. At this point, I'm just creating a little bit of everything. Here are some lidded forms that amazing, stunning. This glaze combo, stunning. Like everything that I was making, that I am making right now, I'm in love with. I feel so strongly about my work. I can confidently say that I'm a proud artisan. I turned some of my tiles into magnets for the fridge. Here's an egg platter. I really feel like I tapped into a personal style that creates a lot of joy within not only my space, but myself. It makes me so happy to be able to make like really unserious, whimsical pieces like this that are also functional and that will live within inside your home. So much more to come in the next year. I hope you enjoy some of my signature colors that I have come to discover. It's all gone back to being really rooted and earthy and grounded with pops of color that again remind me of the couple little flowers that you would find in a grassy field. We have these really rich chocolate brown pieces. This is going to be on my rotation a lot next year. And in case I forgot anything, here is the remainder of everything that I created in 2025. Kitty, what do you have to say? I agree. Shownits.com for all of your whimsical home decor and fiber art needs. You can find more of my work here and stay updated for many more projects to come. Thank you so much for being with me today, and I will see you next year.